She was the enemy I once swore to kill, but I saved her, a blind alien warrior dying on the battlefield.
Night hadn't yet fallen, but the sun was already bleeding. The twilight sky blazed in crimson and violet, casting its final, burning breath across a ruined wasteland, like a dying whisper from the mouth of death itself. Across the vast plains of planet Vuh'laris, dust and plasma smoke still coiled through the air like the souls of the fallen, unwilling or perhaps unable to leave. The wind howled through shattered cliffs and scorched wreckage, carrying with it the cries of torn metal and the ghostly murmurs of a time long gone. The wreckage of a warship, once a symbol of power and hope, now lay twisted and torn like the corpse of some ancient beast. Hull plates were warped and mangled. Blades of metal jutted into the dirt like the desperate claws of a creature that died fighting. Along one side, dark streaks of dried blood trailed as though someone had screamed and dragged themselves, trying in vain to escape. Bodies, both human and Lyri, were scattered everywhere, their identities blurred beyond recognition. Friend or foe no longer mattered. The air was thick with the stench of scorched flesh, iron-rich blood, and ozone, so thick you could taste it. Armor that once gleamed with glory now lay cracked and charred, fused with burnt skin. Some eyes remained open, frozen forever in terror. The earth here was no longer earth, but a foul mix of blood, plasma ash, and bone dust. Every step sank into a living sludge, bubbling, hissing, as if it resented having its stolen lives taken so soon. Scattered across the cracked black soil, plasma blades, weapons of the fallen, still burned with dying energy, flickering like curses left unspoken. Blue light shimmered in the mist like restless ghosts, hovering low, casting eerie shadows over shredded limbs and dismembered hands still clutching the hilts of their weapons. An arm, no body. A face with no eyes. And above all, a silence so thick it felt alive, only broken now and then by the groaning crack of tortured metal, as if even time itself was dying here. In the distance, the warning sirens had long since gone silent. Only the faint echo of their final wails lingered, bouncing through moss-covered mountains like the voice of death, summoning any soul foolish enough to still linger in the crevices of this battlefield. The wind howled through again, carrying the hollow cries of the desert's heart, as though the dead refused to sleep. Each gust stripped away what little life remained, leaving behind only cold and shadow. This was no longer a place of gods or men. The scene was a nightmare made real, a place where light dared not shine, where darkness no longer bothered to hide. And in the swirl of dust and wind, a faint figure crawled, dragging itself through the blood-soaked mud like a ghost that had forgotten how to die. Surail, the Ilyari warrior, once commander of an elite strike unit, had been caught in the blast of a plasma bomb during the battle. Now, all that strength and pride were gone, reduced to a writhing shape struggling in the muck for one last breath of life. Her eyes, those eyes that once lit up the battlefield, were gone. Plasma shrapnel and searing heat had burned them to nothing, leaving only darkened sockets and a haze of pitch-black void. Blood streamed from deep wounds across her body, mingling with the mud. Each time she tried to lift her hand, it was like pulling the weight of a dying world. Ragged breaths escaped her throat, every one a battle to survive, cut short by the cold touch of death tightening around her. She couldn't see, but she could still feel pain, terror, the sharp sting of despair like the edge of a plasma blade. There was no sense of rescue, no hope of salvation. Only the wind, the battlefield's whispers, and the knowledge that she was alone in the dark. Then Dr. Aven, his helmet caked with mud, his medic suit smeared in soot and ash, he emerged from a shadow, too thick to see clearly. Thin, barely more than a silhouette beneath battered armor, he stepped through the burning wreckage, each step leaving a bloody mark in the mud. He didn't care about the ruined warships or the groans of cooling steel. His ears listened for something far more fragile, a breath, a stir, a sign of life. That was his mission. His optical mask swept across the battlefield, scanning for heat signatures. Most were already gone, cold, extinguished. But then, a faint flicker, trembling, a flame refusing to die. Aven froze. His heart skipped. Ahead of him, in a crater carved by plasma fire, something moved. He ran. There, Sorel. The Ilyari warrior writhed in the cold muck, clawing at the ground as if trying to crawl out of hell itself. Her blinded eyes stared wide, sightless, scorched by plasma into violet-black fractures, scars etched by fate. Each breath came in shattered gasps. She didn't know where she was, didn't know if anyone was alive, only that she was dying, left behind like an unburied corpse. Aven stood over her, ankle-deep in the blood-soaked mud of Vuh'laris, staring down at the broken body before him. A dying Ilyari, a soldier, a foe. But in this moment, she was none of that. She was just breath, pain, the last flicker of something still trying to live. The wind howled through pillars of black smoke like the voice of the past, tearing at his ears with memories he thought he'd buried deep. Alert! Residential Zone 4 is under attack. There are children, women, they're burning them alive. The image of his little sister, still clutching a charred teddy bear in her arms, seared itself into his bones. The Ilyari had left nothing behind but ash. No mercy, no reason. And now, right in front of him, one of them lay in the blood-soaked mud of the battlefield, helpless, unable to fight back, unable to beg. A silent death, unseen by anyone. A historical debt, payable by doing absolutely nothing. Aven clenched his fist. His blood-stained rubber gloves let out a faint squeal, like the soft wail of a dying conscience. Let her die, Aven. You owe them that. Your sister deserves her final scream to be the silence of her enemy. But in that moment, he saw her move. Just a twitch of finger, but enough to pierce his heart with a bitter truth. She wasn't the one who killed his sister. She didn't pull the trigger. She was part of the war too, thrown into this nightmare like everyone else, like him. But what if it were your sister lying there? No one came for her. No one even looked. No one chose differently. Aven dropped to his knees. Her Ilyari face, smeared with blood and mud, twisted by injury, still carried a fear he recognized. Not the fear of a warrior, but of a living creature realizing that death was near, and no one was going to stop it. He trembled. His hand reached out to her face. She was cold, far too cold. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from a silent call from the part of him that was still human. He let out a breath, not a groan, a release, a forgiveness. I'm a medic, not a butcher. As his hands began treating her wounds, another voice tore through him. If she lived, she might return. She could pick up a weapon again. She might kill someone else. Might kill you. Kill your team. But Aven knew, if he walked away now, the only thing dying wouldn't be her. It would be every last part of him that was still human. Because in this wasteland, where the only light came from burning corpses, forgiveness was the last trace of civilization. And saving a life wasn't betrayal. It was the one choice that kept him from becoming the monster war had made of others. Aven said nothing. He collapsed beside her, his trembling hand reaching out to her shoulder, cold, slick with blood and mud. She flinched, let out a weak moan like a wounded animal, certain the Reaper had come. Chill. I'm not your enemy. His voice was low, gentle, like an echo from some distant planet, a sound the darkness had never heard before. He opened his medkit, working quickly but carefully on her burns and torn skin. Drops of glowing blue medicine sizzled on contact with blood, releasing a thin mist, like spectral fog, that wrapped around them both, as if in some unspoken ritual of cleansing. Why didn't you kill me? she whispered through the pain. Her voice wasn't a question. It was a curse, like she was confronting a traitor to war itself. Aven didn't answer right away. He just looked at her, face dirty, bloodied, yet strangely noble, like a goddess cast down to earth. No, he couldn't leave her here. Not because she was Ilyari, not because she was the enemy, but because she was dying and no one was reaching out. I chose to save a life instead of watching it fade in silence. He bent down and gathered her into his arms, her body limp like a rain-soaked cloth. Aven slowly rose, standing amid the mud and ruins. The ground beneath him trembled, still hungry for more lives, but he ignored it. On his back, Soraya breathed faintly, her head resting on his shoulder, blood from her wounds soaking into his collar. A warrior of the Empire, now the final burden he chose to carry. In the pitch-black void of the battlefield, two figures moved. Nothing else survived, just the medic and the one he saved, blending into the flickering firelight and the ghosts that refused to leave. And so, they kept walking through the realm of the dead, where life and death twisted together like a never-ending nightmare. Amid the ruins, where even the stones remembered the warmth of death, Aven leaned forward, carrying on his back something that was both a prisoner and a relic of survival, Soraya. Her blood seeped through his shirt, into his skin, like the mark of some unspoken pact. No one sane would save the enemy, but he did. He didn't return to base. He didn't report. He turned into the shadows, where only he knew the path, a forgotten outpost beneath the mountain, once used by scouts long ago. The rusted steel door groaned shut behind them, swallowing the wind. In the flickering emergency lights of the bunker, he laid her down on an old med table coated in dust. She was blind, but her ears still heard, and she shivered at the sound of metal touching skin. "I'm no god," Aven's voice was hoarse, "but I can give you eyes with the one thing your kind despises most, human technology." He looked into the pair of cloudy eyes, burned by plasma shrapnel, once symbols of Ilyari pride, now just two bottomless black voids. And in that moment, he made a silent vow. "Even if you're my enemy, I won't let the darkness steal what's left of you. I'll give you light, even if it's alien light." He pulled out the prototype neural regeneration device, a forbidden piece of tech designed to translate sound into visual input within the cortex, something not even his own people had fully tested. To the Ilyari, it was heresy, a violation of their sacred biopurity. But Aven didn't need any civilization's permission. He just needed belief that she deserved to live. He activated the image reconstruction implant, a living metal core laced with hundreds of nanotendrils gleaming coldly under the dim light. There was no time left for prayer, only science, and mad, desperate hope. Surgery begins now. A high-pitched drill screamed, like the strangled cry of a soul being torn from its body. The sound bounced off metal walls, echoing through the space like a funeral hymn in the language of machines. The bioneedles began their work, hair-thin probes piercing her scalp, seeking their way toward the thalamus, the place where all perception converges. When the needle tips reached their mark, a ghostly flash flickered across her brain scan, as if in that darkness, a universe was being born or collapsing. Soraya convulsed violently. Blood burst from her temples like reverse-flowing fire flowers. Her heart pounded wildly, drawing a chaotic, desperate map across the biomonitor. Aven gripped her shoulders, his arms trembling not from fear, but because he was holding on to something more fragile than life itself. Hope. "Hold on. I'm pulling you back from the edge. I know it hurts, but you have to push through. Can you hear me? You'll see through the whispers of the world." Each word he spoke pierced the moment like a nail. A ritual, a silent prayer between man and machine, between enemies and salvation. Then, one last screech, long, like the final breath of time itself. The monitor blinked lights flickered. No more convulsions. No more screams. Only silence. Not the silence of death, but as if the universe itself was holding its breath to hear light speak through sound. Underground recovery room, dim, green light. A deep chamber below the surface. Cold steel walls. No windows. No sound. Only the faint glow of a biomonitor, flickering like the tired breath of some ancient beast. No one spoke. Only a soul beginning to rise. Sorrel opened her eyes. But there was nothing. No color. No shapes. Just a vast, endless black stretching before her. Her heart thumped, loud and primal, like the echo of drums from the land of the dead. I'm still blind. She tried to turn her head, but even the smallest motion made the world tremble, not with sight, but with waves. Sound waves. Drip. A drop of water fell onto the metal floor. Plink. That sound. Tiny, yet in her mind, a picture began to form. Ripples spread out, bouncing off the walls, the ceiling, the steel table. Each object answered back with a faint hum, and in her mind, they flickered like lights stitched from sound. She jolted upright. Every heartbeat. Every brush of fabric against skin. Every breath from the vent painted the world for her, not with eyes, but with echoes. What is this? Her voice echoed out, a gentle tremor, vibrating against the surfaces around her. The world bloomed like misty art, soft gray alive. No color, just structure. No light, just resonance. The room felt like a giant seashell, and she, the pearl, learning to feel the ocean through the waves that kissed her skin. The door swung open. Aven stepped inside. He said nothing, but his footsteps, firm, sharp, isolated, outlined him like a tower rising in a storm of sound. Sorrel turned toward him, not seeing, but knowing. I can see you through the sound. The world, it whispers to me. Aven froze. His eyes shimmered in the dark, as if even he couldn't believe it had worked. Welcome back. She gently touched her temple, where the chip now lived inside her brain. A sharp pain, but no more fear. This is the first time I've truly seen. Outpost, interior, underground infirmary, later dim light. Echoes of sound, the rhythmic pulse of life support machines beating like a heart trying to survive in the aftermath of war. Sorrel sat against a cold wall. Above her, a biowire threaded into her skull still glowed faintly blue. She silently felt every vibration, each distant echo, each approaching footstep, each whisper of the world around her becoming part of a new way of seeing. Aven sat a few paces away, holding a cup of hot water that never touched his lips. His gaze followed her like he was watching something he couldn't quite believe or dared not look at for too long. Sorrel spoke first. Why did you do it? You could have let me die, like people do with enemies. Aven didn't look at her. He bowed his head. The cup in his hands trembled, the sound enough for her to see his hesitation. Because I've done that before, Aven said, voice rough, and it killed whatever part of me was still human. Sorrel turned her head toward him, not seeing his face, but sensing the fracture within. My family died in an Vuh'lari raid, Aven said. I still hear my little sister's cries when she burned beneath the rubble. Silence, not because there were no words, but because some pain exists beyond them. And now, Sorrel whispered, you just saved another Vuh'lari. Was it worth it? Aven looked up, right where she sat. I don't know, he exhaled. Maybe I'm punishing myself. Or maybe I'm just tired of hating. She gave a soft, bitter laugh, like a blade scraping against metal. We weren't raised to save each other, Aven. We were bred to fight, to divide, not to understand. He nodded, eyes distant. I know. Sorrel raised a hand to her temple, touched the chip, human technology embedded deep in her mind. My people will see me as tainted. They'll say I've been corrupted, a traitor, She paused. The next words cut deeper. Like you once called us monsters. Aven closed his eyes. His heartbeat quickened. She heard it. Felt it. That sound. No longer hate, but a lonely song in the middle of a battlefield. Maybe we've both been betrayed. By this war itself. A soft rumble from the overhead pipes. A mechanical rat scurried past, its clinking echo stretching into the silence like a signal of either dawn or a new nightmare. Sorrel stood. She walked slowly, deliberately. Each step painted an image from the sound bouncing off the walls. Aven stood, too. You gave me a chance to see the world again, but I still don't know what I'll do with it. He nodded, light as a curse carried by the wind. Then let's figure out together. A pale light spilled across the metal floor, one Vuh'lari footstep. One human footstep, blending like the melody of two lost stars. Underground outpost, healing chamber. Sometime later the light in the chamber was no longer sickly like the day she first woke up. Still dim, but now like moonlight filtered through galactic dust, beautiful, cold, and distant. The air smelled of synthetic antibiotics mixed with the rust of old metallic walls. But for Sorrel, sense no longer existed. Only rhythm, tone, shape. Each vibration was a map. A long engine hum outlined the shape of a table before her eyes. The drip of water from a pipe, waves rebounding, forming the folded chair in the corner. And Aven's footsteps, quiet as he crossed the hall, appeared in her mind as deep silver, like a blade gliding across the moon. Sorrel no longer needed her old eyes. She had learned to see through silence itself. Her body, now growing stronger by the day. The 4 tubes were gone. All that remained was the biotic chip, still embedded in her skull, like a second heartbeat, silently calibrating her to human technology. And yet, strangely, the hatred no longer echoed as it once did. It hadn't disappeared, but dissolved like poison smoke pushed through the cracks of consciousness by a gentle wind. Aven was the first person she heard with her entire mind. Not just his voice, but the stillness behind it. The way he breathed when sitting near. The soft tapping of his fingernail on the edge of the chair when he thought. His heartbeat, sometimes skipping a beat when her head turned toward him. And then one day, when time was no longer measured in hours, but in the distance between two souls, they began to truly speak. Aven, sitting beside the bed, soft light casting shadows across his face. I don't know if you'll believe me, but I used to think you're kind. The Vuh'lari were demons dressed as gods. Every story, every image, taught me how to kill you more efficiently. Sorrel tilted her head, looking at him by listening to the flow of blood in his arteries. The sound slow, hushed like a man reevaluating everything he believed. Sorrel, soft as wind brushing a wire. We learned the same about you. That your kind were cold machines whose language was war and whose purpose was extinction. A silence followed, but it wasn't tense anymore. Now, there was a space for reflection, like water waiting to mirror the sky. Aven, looking her in the eye, you're not what I expected. You see me in a way no one ever has. Sorrel, closing her eyes, faint smile. That's because I no longer have eyes. Only sound, and sound doesn't know how to lie. Day by day, they began to share the smallest things. Once, Sorrel smiled when Aven tried strumming a broken guitar with his bare hands. The sound was awful, but she could feel its color, a pale yellow joy, like sunlight sneaking into a room that had never known a sunrise. Another time, Aven froze, stunned, when she sensed a small scratch on his arm, not by sight, but by the way his sleeve brushed against the skin. She gently placed her hand there, as if healing it through presence alone. In the cold steel walls, something warm began to rise. Not a rushed love, but something deeper, a rhythm, a language beyond words. One evening, they sat beside the plasma heater in the corner of the research bunker. Its blue glow danced softly across their foreheads. Sorel spoke. I used to think one day I'd kill someone like you. Now I wonder if I could survive without you. Aven didn't answer. He simply reached out his hand, not touching, just close, and she placed hers over his. No sparks, no thunder, just two heartbeats becoming one. In that moment, they knew there were things they had lost, but maybe in the ashes they had found something new, something not forged by race, war, or command, but by the silence between two hearts that saw each other. No one could say how many days had passed since Sorel was rescued. It might have been weeks, or lifetimes. Time didn't pass here, it dissolved. Dissolved into the dim light, into the quiet glances when Aven sat beside her. Sorel had learned to hear the world through sound, but strangely, it was Aven who made her see the clearest. Not through heartbeats, not through breath, but through the gentle spaces between the things he never said. He never touched her, but the way his gaze lingered behind her was enough to make the air itself stop moving. And Sorel, once a cold warrior, a proud entity of the noble Ilyari race, now felt soft as silk under the gaze of a man who was once her enemy. Each day, little things brushed against them. Once, Aven gently tied the strip of cloth that held her hair, and his fingers lightly touched the back of her neck. The sensation wasn't just touch. It was light blooming from a planet that had never been named. Chamber of auroral light, deep research bunker, artificial moonlight night. The space was still. Only drifting cyan light floated like lost souls trapped between atmospheres, reflecting off the room's semi-transparent dome. This planet had no real moon, only illusions of distant starlight refracted from the rings of galaxies millions of light years away. But tonight, it was strangely beautiful, as if witnessing something sacred. Sorel stood near the threshold of the auroral doorway, her thin cloak fluttering with the artificial breeze. Her silver-white hair shimmered like threads of cosmic silk, catching light in silent flashes. She didn't need her eyes. Her ears of sound could feel every heartbeat in the chest of the man behind her. Slow, deep, real. Aven stepped closer, each movement pressing gently against the quiet. He said nothing, but she knew he was hesitating, not out of fear, but respect for the thing growing between them, too fragile to name, too real to deny. Sorel, whispering without turning around, the sound of a human heart, it's different from ours. It stumbles, it skips, but it's alive. Aven smiles, a mix of doubt and tenderness in his eyes. Aven, and here I thought your heart was a frozen crystal, silent and still. Sorel, turning, slowly walking toward him, it was, until I heard your sound. The space between them melts like time itself dissolving. No war, no species, no hatred, only breath, and the kind of silence that speaks volumes. His hand touches hers, not rushed, not forced, like two streams of energy finally finding their true form. She doesn't pull away. He doesn't flinch. And in that moment, every prejudice shatters into stardust. Bio-chamber, timeless night. The room glows softly from a drifting mist of bioluminescent energy sensors. A surreal haze paints their bodies in a ghostly blue, making them look like two souls melting into each other, lost in a luminous yet lonely universe. They sit close on a pressure-neutral mat, weightless in both body and emotion. No more words are needed. Aven, his fingers brushing her cheek, trembling slightly. I used to think love was just a chemical reflex, until you came into my life like a solar storm. Not to destroy, but to awaken. Sorel, resting her head against his chest, her lips brushing his neck like a whispering breeze. I don't know what love is, but if it has a color, it's what I see every time I touch you. Then, nothing holds them back from the sacred pull calling from the depths of their beings. They kiss, for the first time, Not like members of different species, but like ancient souls finding each other again after centuries lost in the cosmos. A kiss that is slow but intense, gentle but blazing. It doesn't beg to be noticed, but it sets galaxies on fire. Her cloak falls like a veil of mist. Their skin meets, not just in contact, but in conversation. Scars, memories, pain, all exposed, all accepted. No judgment, no chains. And that night, they became one, like light and sound weaving a sacred symphony. No lyrics, only breath and heartbeats. It wasn't just a night of passion. It was the first night they truly understood. Love doesn't come from sameness. It is born from embracing difference like a miracle. After the storm, early morning. Aven lies beside her, his eyes tracing the glow still lingering on her skin from the long night. Aven, whispering, holding her hand, if there's a place out there in the galaxy where a human and an Ilyari can be together, would you go there with me? Sorel doesn't answer right away. She simply tilts her head, placing her ear on his chest, listening to that human heart again. Then she smiles. Sorel, softly, I already did. Long ago, the moment I realized you weren't just human anymore. You were part of me. Underground Station, Data Core. Aven, still carrying the lingering glow of a night soaked in love, steps toward the main data terminal. His fingers tremble slightly as they hover over the navigation screen. The glass flickers to life, then flashes red. The light pulses like a panicked heartbeat. A string of strange code unfurls across the screen, like an invisible chain unraveling. And then, Aven, voice tight, spine cold, no, that's impossible. I locked every gate. He slams and override commands. No response. Instead, a familiar symbol appears, one he swore he'd never see again. Interplanetary Reactive Alliance sigil, silver as a blade's edge. A crescent moon cradling a burning sphere on a black backdrop. Aven freezes. An instinctive dread rises, one he thought he buried with the battlefield. Automated voice from overhead speaker, deep, emotionless, godlike, encryption restored. Analysis. Unknown thermal entity confirmed extraterrestrial origin. Threat level 4. Target Substation D-47. Rapid response unit en route. Estimated arrival 1 hour, 12 minutes, 39 seconds. Each word strikes like a nail down his spine. Aven stumbles back a step, his heart no longer beating with the rhythm of love, but racing against death. Outside, the faint yellow glow of the station's beacon began to shift to red, a deep red, blood red. A series of clicks echoed through the hallway. The automatic door latches locking, the defense systems activating. He turned his head. Behind him, in the half-open metal doorframe, Sorel appeared. The thin veil fell from her shoulders, revealing her silver-tinged skin that was beginning to pale. Her eyes didn't see with light. They felt the vibrations of the world. And now, she felt something terrible. Death was drawing near. Sorel, voice low, trembling but sharp. What's happening? Aven didn't answer right away. He looked at her, a blurry pain in his eyes, not because of death, but because the dream that had just blossomed was about to fade. Aven, hoarse voice, they know. They're coming for you, Sorel. And this time, they won't ask if you're the enemy. A strange wind swept through the ventilation shaft, cold, dry, with the burnt smell of overheated metal. War was knocking at the door, and love, which had just sparked in the heat of the night, was now facing the flames of annihilation. The sound of Sorel's footsteps was as light as a bat gliding across the moon, yet each step reverberated in Aven's chest like a warning bell. Her skin still carried the warmth of their passionate night, but her expression had changed completely. A flash of alertness shattered the lingering tenderness in her eyes as a metallic warning voice suddenly blared from the auxiliary control panel by the stone wall. Computer voice, low. Indifferent Ilyari molecular signal detected. Off-world origin. Trace analysis has begun. All the lights in the chamber seemed to tighten. Surreal stood still, as if frozen in a heartbeat that stretched on endlessly. The wind in the chamber shifted direction, brushing through her silver hair like a sacred smoke rising in silent fury. Surreal, voice low, cold as the night on a dying planet. You, who said no one knew we were. Here, there was no anger in her voice, only a deep disappointment, buried like a black hole at the bottom of the universe. Aven moved forward, without hesitation, without doubt. He didn't let her pull away, but instead tightened his grip on her shoulder, as if to keep her from slipping out of his grasp forever. Aven, hoarse, almost pleading, "I swear I didn't." I locked all communication channels. But maybe the xenothermic scanner activated automatically. His eyes that had witnessed war, betrayal, and death, were now as pale as bone. His lips trembled, not from fear of the enemy, but from the fear of losing the miracle that had come to him after years of darkness. Aven, voice low, determined, "And I won't let that happen." The world seemed to freeze. In the faint green light of the chamber, they faced each other, no longer a doctor and a patient, no longer human and alien, but two souls clinging to each other in the storm of fate. In the distance, a click echoed. A security door had been sealed. The space vibrated slightly. The defense systems were waking up. Surreal gently raised her head, sensing the rhythmic change in the air. Her eyes were blind, but she saw clearer than anyone. An army was rushing towards them. They came without reason. They came with only one order. Surreal, whispering, "They didn't give us time to love, did they?" Aven, pressing his forehead to hers, voice hoarse, "Then we'll steal every last second." The alarm siren blared. Red light flooded the chamber like the blood of a nightmare just waking up. They held hands, and like two stars lost in the void, they ran together into the darkness, the only place where hope still survived and where love was tested. The sky was as black as molten iron, stretching infinitely like a deep cosmic hole, swallowing all hope. Not a single star twinkled, not a single sound, only the darkness and something swimming through it. From the edge of the orbit, a spacecraft bearing the insignia of the Planetary Reaction Alliance silently approached. They didn't roar. They didn't send warning signals. They only advanced, quietly towards their target, like a pack of night hunters who had caught the scent of blood. A voice within cold as the ice of a frost star. Target, Substation D-47. Ilyari subject. Risk level, undefined. Priority action, complete eradication. No mercy, no retrieval, no emotion. The red lights in the compartment blinked 3 times. The action plan had been locked in. No one among them was allowed to refuse the mission. The last warrior crouched down to check the plasma rifle, then reattached the receiver to his wrist. Computer voice from the command center, Team Beta 9, approach biological level. Team Kraken, block the south tunnel exit. Team Phoenix, prepare thermal slash. Re-establish terrain surface if necessary. Under the cover of night, the train continued its path, without veering an inch. The earth below remained still, unaware that the hunters were nearly upon it, close enough to feel their breath. And on D-47 substation, a man held the hand of the woman he loved. Above them, an armored nightmare hovered, waiting to tear apart their small paradise into dust. The alarm blared like the drumbeats of war echoing from the bowels of the earth. Red flashes pulsed along the tunnel walls, like the furious gaze of an ancient entity awakening. Dust swirled through the corridors like a deathly fog, and in the distance, the sound of metal clashing rang out, the footsteps of armored soldiers drawing near. Aven pulled Surreal through a rusted shield into a nearby emergency exit, a dark tunnel as black as the throat of an ancient dragon. The cold, underground air pressed against their skin, like a serpent coiling around their necks. No light, no way back, only each other and the pounding of their hearts. Aven, whispering, unlocking the next level as he ran. There's a shifting ship underground, not military. It's an old rescue vessel, buried since the Neutral War. If we make it there, we can leave this system before they lock down all the transfer networks. Soraya, her voice trembling, not from fear, but from the growing weight in her chest. You'll leave everything for someone like me? Aven stopped. In that moment, time seemed to halt. It was just the two of them, beneath the Earth's dark belly, in a collapsing world. The flashing warning lights illuminated Aven's eyes, turning them into two burning red stars. No longer a doctor, no longer a man. Only one who had chosen to love, even though that love was forbidden. Aven, in a low voice, as though a vow rising from his soul, I'm not leaving anything behind, because from the moment I loved you, I knew everything else is just dust. He reached out to touch her face, his fingers trembling lightly as they felt the heat of her unfamiliar yet hauntingly familiar skin. Their lips met, amidst a world crumbling around them, like two stars colliding for the last time before falling into a black hole. Boom! The explosion echoed from above. Rocks and debris fell, and part of the tunnel's ceiling collapsed. They both stumbled, dust choking their sight. In the distance, the faint blue lights of detectors began to creep down the tunnel, like the tentacles of a technological monster, hunting to strangle any remaining life. Intercom voice, cold AS blood ice, target Ilyari location confirmed. Activating biological extermination protocol. Leave no trace. Aven activated the navigation device, the faint light from the handheld screen revealing a narrow path below, an old technical hatch buried deep in the ground. Aven, gripping her hand tightly. The shifting ship is only 3 lock stations away, but if we're detected, the entire substation will be leveled in 3 minutes. Soraya, are you ready to leave everything behind? Soraya, her eyes glowing, not from fear, but from the knowledge that this love cannot die here. No, I won't leave. I'm coming with you. They charged toward the final gate, where fate, memories, and destiny awaited. An explosion rang behind them. A ventilation shaft had been triggered to block their pursuers. Black smoke billowed up like the final breath of the station. They dashed through an ancient archway, a relic so old that the etched symbols had almost faded completely. Only 2 strange markings remained, in a language of the ancients: pass, no turning back. A deafening beam shook the heavens. The ceiling above cracked wide open. Metal shards, like shark teeth, rained down, ready to crush anyone who slowed. Aven, yelling as they ran. Just 200 meters left. The shifting ship is starting up. We have to reach it before the self-destruct system triggers. Behind them, a squad of soldiers rushed in. The lights from their armored helmets illuminated the tunnel like false suns. A plasma shot zipped past Aven's shoulder, melting part of his suit, leaving behind a burn mark that reeked of human blood and charred skin. Soraya screaming, "Aven!" He turned back, his eyes still blazing, not from the pain, but because she was still alive. Their hands clutched together, their palms slick with sweat and ash, but holding tight like links in a chain between 2 fates forsaken by the galaxy. At the end of the tunnel, a faint light flickered. The shifting ship was powering up. A fragile hope, like a candle in an electromagnetic storm. The old ship's door appeared in the dim darkness, like a mythic relic buried under the earth. The emergency shifting ship, marked with insignia from the time of the predecessor alliance, had been in use for decades. It still breathed, like an ancient dragon waiting for the last soul to awaken it. System, through the internal speaker, with a faint electronic voice. Warning. Semi-automatic activation state. Stabilizing shifting flow, 90 seconds. Surreal rushed to the control panel. Ancient symbols in technical language flickered, obsolete now, but she didn't need to understand. The instincts of the Ilyari guided her. Her hand skimmed over the buttons, her eyes as tense as a drawn bowstring. Behind her, a scream rang out. Aven collapsed. A bullet had struck his knee as he passed through the side door. Blood oozed in thick streaks, soaking through his torn armor. His legs no longer intact. Aven, looking up, fighting the pain, voice hoarse, don't stop. Open it. I have to go. Surreal, turning back, trembling, tears gleaming under the red warning lights. No, you're coming with me. I won't go anywhere if you stay. She ran to him, supporting him, one arm draped over his shoulder, dragging him step by step. The sirens blared, each one counting down their time left to survive. 65 seconds. 60, 55. Aven, whispering in her ear, my legs can't run anymore, Surreal. If you go back to help, you'll die with me. And this love won't get another chance. Surreal, snarling, eyes blazing, not only with love but with rage at fate. I'll die if I can't get you out of here. They made it to the edge of the ship's door. Aven collapsed, breath ragged. Surreal twisted the knob on the startup panel, the blue light enveloping the pressure chamber. But then, bang! The underground station door slammed open in the distance. The reaction soldiers charged in like wild beasts chasing their prey. They saw the shifting light and raised their weapons in unison. Unit commander, over radio, stop the teleport. Fire on the transmission gate. A gunshot rang out and exploded in a crackle of electrical sparks. Part of the transmission dome was hit, sending the teleportation stream into chaos. Purple lightning coiled like an angry fire dragon. Surreal screamed, holding Aven tight. She didn't ask anymore. Didn't wait anymore. Her hand pressed the final button. Forced teleportation. System forced teleportation initiated. Stability not guaranteed. She placed Aven in the stabilization chamber. His blood soaked the floor, but his eyes remained open, fixed on her. Aven, voice like a dying breath. If we don't survive, I want you to know I've never felt alive until you held my hand for the first time. Surreal leaned down, pressing her forehead to his, a farewell ritual of the Ilyari. Amidst the gunfire tearing through the air and the flashes of light ripping the night apart, they were unshaken. Just two hearts beating in sync. 0 seconds. A blazing white light engulfed the chamber. Nothing remained but the sound of the rush and the torn void. The underground station goes quiet again. When the teleportation light fades, only the ruined station remains. An officer steps up to the scorched transmission chamber. He bends down, touches the warm blood streak, and shudders. Officer, looking up, whispering, they escaped, but they're no longer fugitives. On the teleport ship, the space inside the old ship trembled with the rhythm of a dying heartbeat of some ancient creature. The power conduits glowed, purple, blue, and white twisting together like rivers of the sky flooding through the ship's body. Surreal held Aven's hand tighter, now lying sideways in the makeshift medical bay, his legs wrapped in recovery cloth, but his face twisted in pain not just from the physical injury, but from the unspoken questions. Would they still be themselves after this non-space jump? Was there any place in this galaxy big enough to embrace two souls cursed by their origins? Surreal, whispering softly, like a lullaby between the stars. Hold me, Aven. Even if you're lost in any dimension, I'll find you. Aven cracked his eyes open. He looked at her, like a man about to die, seeing the last star left in the black sky. Aven, consciousness drifting, his words echoing like a voice from another life. You're the only memory I never want to forget. Even if this light burns your name off all the maps, I'll still remember the feel of your hand on my first wound. A new universe, a new beginning. The sky exploded in a purple mist. The ship appeared in an entirely alien space, where planets hung like jade and stars twisted into rotating spheres. No radar, no signals, no pursuers, only them, floating in a universe no one had named. Aven sat up, his face pale, but his eyes burning with intensity. Sorrel stood by the ship's doorway, gazing out at the ocean of stars flowing like velvet. Aven whispers, "Where are we?" Sorrel, not turning around, her voice as if speaking to fate itself. "This is where we will continue the story." Thank you for watching Sci-Fi Alien Stories. If you love sci-fi tales about aliens and cosmic mysteries, make sure to hit like to support the channel and subscribe so you don't miss the next thrilling story. What do you think about today's story? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you're the first to uncover new mysteries. See you in the next video.